I walked into my living room after 3 weeks away and found my nephew's live-in girlfriend, lounging on my sofa, scrolling on her phone. She looked up, smiled, and declared, "We're making this permanent." Uncle Rob. That's when the ice water hit my veins. Before I tell you how a 67-year-old retired Marine vet dealt with a squatter who thought she had rights in his paid-off house, please hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from. I'm sharing this because sometimes the most devastating betrayals come from the people you let in. Let me take you back to the start. My name is Robert Rob Sullivan, and most people in Portland, Oregon, knew me as the owner of the biggest boatyard for 3 decades. I sold the business 5 years ago. Now I'm 67, retired, and living a quiet life. My knees protest when the Pacific winds bring in the rain. And my grip isn't what it used to be, but my mind, it's never been sharper. Experience teaches you to see things younger folks miss. I own a 3-bedroom ranch house in the North Portland suburbs. Nothing glamorous, but it was mine. Bought with my late wife, Caroline, back in '89. It was paid off long before she passed away 6 years ago from cancer. The silence after she left was deafening. The house felt cavernous, an echo chamber of shared memories. Marcus is my late sister Linda's son. His mother died suddenly from an aneurysm when he was 19, and his father was never around. I took him in because that's what family does. I helped fund his welding school, connected him with shipyard work, and let him stay in my spare room during his apprenticeship. Back then he was a decent kid, humble, grateful, and quiet. Then Sienna showed up about 8 months ago. She was 26, all expensive looking, clothes and an attitude that suggested she was above her actual job. Marcus brought her over for dinner, and I genuinely tried to be welcoming. Caroline always warned me about being too quick to judge, so I gave her a chance. But I quickly noticed the subtle signs. The way her eyes lingered on my belongings, as if totaling their value. How she'd cut Marcus off mid-sentence and he'd just concede and fall silent. 3 months ago, Marcus called me frantic. His apartment was undergoing a full asbestos removal and renovation, and they needed a temporary place to stay. Just 2 weeks, maybe 3 at the absolute most, he promised. I said yes. He was family, and honestly, the house was too quiet. 2 weeks turned into a month. A month became 2. Each time I gently raised the issue of them finding a new place, Sienna had a perfectly crafted excuse. The housing market was impossible. They were saving up for a down payment, or Marcus needed 1 more certification to unlock a better salary. I rationalized it, telling myself I was being helpful, that Caroline would approve. That was my first mistake. My second was going on the fishing trip. My friend, Don, had been planning this 3-week fishing and camping expedition to the remote Alaskan Panhandle for 2 years. I almost canceled. A heavy feeling in my gut warned me not to leave the house. But Don insisted, and I dismissed my fears as paranoia. Marcus had a key. He knew the alarm code. He could manage the place. I left on a Tuesday in early September. 3 weeks of no cell service, just the open ocean, the thrill of the salmon run, and old friends. It was the break I desperately needed. The moment I turned into my driveway on that Thursday afternoon, I knew something was fundamentally wrong. A rusted-out sedan with expired tags was parked in my spot. The lawn was shaggy. Caroline's flower garden, the one I religiously tended, was trampled and littered with cigarette butts. The front door was not only unlocked but slightly ajar. The stench hit me immediately. Stale beer, week-old Chinese food, and a chemical sweet smell I couldn't identify. I stepped inside and my stomach plummeted. My living room looked like a landfill. Pizza boxes piled high on my heirloom coffee table, empty cans everywhere. Dishes caked with food covered every surface. My custom-built bookshelf had been shoved into a dark corner to make space for a massive new TV I'd never seen before. Someone had drilled mounts right over the brick fireplace, covering the spot where Caroline's portrait used to hang. I walked through my own house like a trespasser. The kitchen was worse. A mountain of greasy dishes overflowed the sink onto the floor. The garbage bin was spilling. I could smell rotten food from a leaking container in the fridge from across the room. Then I heard noise upstairs. Music and loud laughter. I climbed the stairs, the old wood groaning beneath my weight. A sound that used to be comforting now felt like a blaring warning in hostile territory. My master bedroom door was open. I stood in the frame and absorbed the shocking scene. The king-sized, Four-poster bed Caroline and I had shared for 33 years was gone. In its place sat a huge, tacky modern bed with a black padded headboard. Clothes were scattered everywhere. The oak dresser her father had handcrafted was pushed against a wall, completely buried under makeup and cheap shopping bags. The walls had been painted a depressing, harsh gray, replacing the soft blue Caroline loved. Our wedding photo was missing. And there she was, Sienna, sprawled on my bed in a silk robe, casually scrolling on her phone. She looked up, completely unsurprised, and smiled, not an apologetic smile, but a smug, victorious one. "Oh, Rob," she said, stretching languidly. "You're back a day early. We didn't expect you." I felt my throat tighten, unable to speak. She sat up, perfectly composed. "So what do you think? We upgraded. The old furniture was ancient. This is much better, don't you agree? Where is my bed?" The words were barely a whisper. She waved her hand in a dismissive arc. "Oh, we donated that. And the dresser was taking up too much space. It's in the garage. This room gets the best light and we need the space for our things. You understand?" Before I could answer, Marcus appeared behind me. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Hey, Uncle Rob," he muttered. "Good trip?" I turned to him, my nephew, the boy I'd raised. He stood there, shoulders hunched, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "Marcus," I said slowly, "explain this." He shifted his weight nervously. "Look, we've been talking. This situation is working out great for us. You have this huge place. You don't need all this room. We figured we could take this room since it's the master, and you could use a smaller one. It's more practical." "More practical?" I echoed. Sienna stood up, gliding over to place her hand on Marcus's arm. I watched him visibly lean into her touch, like a puppet responding to its master. "We're actually doing you a favor, Rob," she cooed, her voice sickly sweet, the kind of tone a con artist uses. "This house is too much for you to manage alone. We can help with utilities and upkeep. It's just better for everyone if we simply stay permanently." The word permanently hung in the thick, foul air. I looked at them both, standing in my sanctuary, telling me how my life was going to be run. Something inside me snapped, replaced by a deep, quiet, terrifying resolve. "Get out," I said. Sienna actually laughed. "Rob, don't be so dramatic." I said, "Get out!" My voice hadn't risen, but the change in my tone made Marcus flinch. "We're not going anywhere." Sienna's smile turned into a sneer. "We've been living here for 2 months. We've established residency. You can't legally kick us out. We have rights." Rights? She'd finally confirmed the scheme. I looked at Marcus one last time. "Is this really your plan? To steal from your own blood?" He still wouldn't meet my gaze. "It's not stealing, Uncle Rob. We're being sensible." In that moment, I knew this wasn't an act of foolishness. It was a planned takeover. They had waited until I was unreachable to execute their move. I turned and walked out, hearing Sienna's satisfied, low voice talking to Marcus behind me. I walked downstairs through the mess and straight to my truck. My hands were vibrating as I turned the ignition, not from fear but from a cold, controlled fury. They assumed they were dealing with a tired, lonely old man. They assumed I was too grateful for their presence to fight. They had no idea they had just messed with the wrong veteran. I drove to a rundown motel on the outskirts of Portland, checked in, and sat on the edge of the cheap, scratchy bed, paying for a room while strangers ruined my home. The anger quickly solidified into crystal-clear strategy. I pulled out my phone and made 3 crucial calls. First to my lawyer, Tom McKenzie. We'd known each other for 40 years. I laid out the entire story. He listened patiently. "Rob, this is elder financial exploitation and potentially criminal. We can go after them hard. I want them gone from my property legally and permanently, and I want them to fully comprehend the consequence of this betrayal," I told him. "Give me 24 hours, Tom instructed. "Do not go back there. I'll handle the paperwork." The second call was to my old friend Jimmy Chen, a retired Portland police detective who now ran a private investigation firm. I needed a deep dive on Sienna. I needed to know exactly who and what I was fighting. "I'll pull her records, financial, social media, prior residences. If she has a past, I'll find it," Jimmy promised. The third call was to my daughter Beth, who lived with her family in Seattle. We spoke every Sunday, but this couldn't wait. "Dad, what is it?" she asked, hearing the strain in my voice. I told her everything. When I finished, she was furious. "The audacity. I'm booking the first flight down tomorrow morning. Mom would already be on the plane, and so am I. Nobody does this to my father. After we hung up, I sat in that dismal motel room, feeling a profound loss for Caroline, not to fight my battle but to share the hurt. Instead, I pulled out a notebook and began documenting everything. Dates, her comments about residency rights, the destruction of property, the donated furniture. I was building a case piece by methodical piece. By 7:30 the next morning, Tom called. I filed for an emergency temporary restraining order and an eviction hearing. We have a court date in 3 days. I'm sending a process server right now to notify them they have to vacate and prevent them from damaging or stealing anything else. Can they fight this? I asked. They can try, Tom said. But they are not tenants, they haven't paid a dime, and they have caused property damage. Plus, if Jimmy finds what I suspect he will, they'll want to drop this fast. By noon, Jimmy called. You need to sit down. I gripped the phone. Tell me. Sienna Reeves, 26, originally from Gresham. She has a pattern. 2 years ago, she moved in with an elderly man in Beaverton, claiming to be his caretaker. 6 months later, she had him add her to his bank accounts. His daughter eventually caught her, but the victim refused to press charges, so the case was dropped. My blood ran cold. There's more, Jimmy continued. Before that, she lived with a widower in Salem. Same script. Moved in as a companion. Isolated him. Attempted to gain control of his finances. That only ended when his son physically removed her. Again, no charges filed. The old man was too ashamed. She makes a living preying on people like me, I realized. At least 2 confirmed victims, Jimmy confirmed. And your nephew Marcus? He's deep in debt, credit cards, personal loans, maybe $43,000 total. Your house isn't just convenient. It's a financial salvation for them. I hung up, the anger hardening into absolute resolve. This was no longer just about my house. It was about stopping a predator. Beth arrived that evening and her hug was the only comfort I needed. We're fixing this, Dad. The next morning, Beth and I watched from a parked car down the street as a process server knocked on my front door. Marcus answered. We saw him take the thick envelope and the color instantly drained from his face. Sienna snatched the papers, read them, and then frantically looked up and down the street. Probably searching for me. Good, Beth whispered. Let her start sweating. The hearing was set for Friday morning. Tom told me to be calm, wear my suit, and let him handle the arguments. You are the victim, Rob. Let the judge see that. On Friday morning, I put on the suit I'd worn to Caroline's funeral. Beth helped me straighten my tie. You've got this, Dad. The courtroom was quiet. Marcus and Sienna sat opposite me with a clearly nervous lawyer they'd hired last minute. Sienna tried to look like a respectable young professional. Marcus just looked terrified. Tom laid out our case, the timeline of their unauthorized stay, the property destruction, the unauthorized renovations, the donated furniture. He then showed the judge Sienna's social media, photos of my house, calling it her new place, a Pinterest board detailing a complete kitchen renovation. Then the final blow. Your Honor, Miss Reeves has a documented history of targeting and exploiting vulnerable senior citizens. We have evidence of at least 2 prior attempts to take control of an elderly gentleman's assets after moving into their residence. Sienna's lawyer objected vehemently, but Tom had the detailed reports. The judge, a woman with steely gray hair and an unblinking gaze, looked directly at Sienna. Miss Reeves, is this true? Sienna's composure finally fractured. They were misunderstandings. I was trying to help. Answer the question, the judge commanded. Did you move into 2 separate homes belonging to older men and attempt to gain control of their property? Silence. Miss Reeves. I never broke the law, she stammered. That is not what I asked. The whole hearing took under 90 minutes. The judge ruled decisively in my favor. Marcus and Sienna had 72 hours to vacate the property and were forbidden from removing or damaging anything else. Failure to comply would result in forcible removal by the sheriff's department. As we stood to leave, I looked across the room. Marcus was openly weeping. Sienna was glaring at me with raw hatred. I felt only exhaustion. Outside, Beth hugged me tightly. It's finally over, Dad. Not yet, I replied. That weekend, Beth and I went back to the house and immediately changed every lock. Marcus and Sienna were still packing, refusing to meet my eyes. I walked through the house cataloging the damage. The list was long, but it was all just material. Wood, paint, Glass. It could be fixed. I stood in the claimed master bedroom. The harsh gray walls seemed to mock me. We'll repaint it, Dad, Beth said, standing beside me. Make it yours again. No, I said. I think I'll take the smaller guest room. A completely fresh start. She looked surprised, then nodded. Okay. On Sunday afternoon, Marcus showed up alone. Sienna was idling in their car. Uncle Rob, he said, his voice raw. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix what you deliberately broke, I responded quietly. I know, She made it seem like you needed us, and then it got out of control. I didn't know how to stop it. You knew exactly how to stop it, Marcus. You simply lacked the integrity to do so. He wiped his eyes. I'll pay you back for everything. The furniture, the repairs. You are $43,000 in debt, I reminded him. Focus on fixing your own life first. He nodded, started to walk away, then paused. Aunt Caroline. She'd be so disappointed in me. Yes, I agreed. She absolutely would be. After their car disappeared, Beth and I stood in the driveway. Do you think he'll be all right? She asked. Once he's free of her? And you? I looked at my house. Damaged, yes, violated, but still standing. I'll be fine, I said. I always am. Over the next month, I repaired everything myself. I repainted the master bedroom to the soft blue Caroline had loved. I found our wedding photo in the garage and rehung it. The furniture was a loss, but Tom helped me file a civil claim against Sienna's few assets to recover some money. 6 weeks after the hearing, Jimmy called again. Thought you'd want the update. Marcus and Sienna split. He's back living with a buddy from the shipyard. She's already moved in with someone new. Another older gentleman. This time near Salem. Ugh. Did you warn him? I asked. I tried, he wouldn't listen. Some people have to touch the electric fence themselves. I thought about reaching out to Marcus, but I stopped myself. Some relationships can't be immediately fixed. Maybe someday. Beth came back for Thanksgiving. We cooked together in my cleaned kitchen. As we sat at the table, she raised her glass. To Mom, she said, and to you for not letting them win. To Caroline, I said, who would have handled it with far more grace than I did. I don't know about that, Beth countered. I think you handled it perfectly. You didn't let your anger control you. You used the system. You protected what was yours. That's the truth of it. I protected what was mine. If you appreciate a story where the quiet old guy uses his head, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to Shattered Vengeance.